Having spent most of my adult life in large liberal cities like Minneapolis and Seattle, I was often cast as a Christian apologist at dinner parties and friendly get-togethers. An apologist is someone adept at making reasonable arguments in favor of something. So briefly, it was my intent to tackle the project of becoming a Muslim apologist, if just for a day, because my studies into the subject had so far convinced me that we Christians are too much like the dinner party I used to know when it comes to understanding Islam. I wanted the community to approach the subject with compassion and mercy and knowledge. So then I wrote a speech that might be accomplished at least some of that. There's been so much change in the dynamics of the relationship between the Islamic world and the rest of us globally, however, that I know now that to preach tolerance and graceful acceptance of refugees and immigrants alike in this political climate would be irresponsible at best and incredibly dangerous at worst. I do not want you, the audience, to feel jilted, but I have been forced to turn away from my original theme as the safety of my neighbors and my fellow countrymen is now facing some seriously dark times ahead. So this discussion becomes a warning. It would be the height of recklessness for me to try to persuade Americans to be more lenient in numbers and more lax in requirements when dealing with those displaced by Islamic warfare. Because of what I have learned by the nature of the Quran and the two distinct schisms of Islam and the recent events globally, I have to state here and now that it is of utmost importance to our national security, to the maintenance of our culture, and protect from harm our families and fellow citizens by establishing extreme vetting practices right now and begin using considerate but critical steps to ensure the blood spilling does not come onto our soil. So, when studying Islam, I took a religions class and I took an English class before. I've been studying Islam for nearly a year, and the book itself is not inherently evil, though it is split into two different aspects. You have the Mecca right here, and those are the verses, if you will, that were written initially, his first verses that he was supposedly got from the angel Gabriel, Muhammad. And when he was kicked out of Mecca, you have what you have later on as the Medina verses, when he was gearing up for war with the Muslims who wouldn't receive his message and still practiced animistic beliefs. What I've learned recently about this is Beyond the Cusp, on August 10, 2007, wrote an article titled "Which Quran, Mecca or Medina?" On worldpress.com. And a man named Quirster had done some research, and he had discovered that yes, the book was split into two distinct different messages. Those messages were intertwined with each other, and they were intertwined by subject. So you might question whether or not, what should I do with my brother's widow? And you go to the Quran, and you might have 3 or 4 different things that actually conflict against each other about what to do about the situation. So it does not go anywhere near establishing what Muhammad wanted to do, which was a social order. In fact, he began to use it to justify attacking trade caravans, and his words began to become more violent and more violent the older he got. So this is something I just realized, and it's one of those things that you have to step back and you have to consider when you're talking about the Islamic faith and the Islamic religion, and you have to discover more about, well, what makes a moderate Muslim before we can begin to open our borders to everybody. So not only do you have that, but you also have the schism between the Sunni and the Shia, which happened at Muhammad's death. 80% of the globe right now is Sunni, and they were backing a guy named Abu Akbar, and that was Muhammad's stepdad, his father-in-law, marriage through his wife. And then you have the other group, which was Shia, who backed the cousin. Now both of them became caliphs, the Sunni first and then the Shia second, but for some reason that's enough to have 1,000 years of feudal warfare and bloodshed because of grudges. And when you look at that, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to have this kind of measured violence that we have in the globe today. You've got to remember, ISIS is Sunni. The Iranians, they're Shia. And not only do they kill each other, but they tend to get out and kill everything that goes in their path. So as Americans, we have to be very watchful over this when we're considering the refugees. The last one is what has happened in the last 3 weeks or so. NPR.org reported dozens killed as 2 attacks target Coptic church, April 9th, 2017. That's my birthday, by the way. And this was a really made it appallingly apparent to me that I had to reconsider what I was going to promote, because the Egyptians and the Coptics had lived together in harmony since at least 800 AD. And it's only been till things have built up since ISIS where you start having these problems with the Egyptians and the Coptic Christians. And now they're burning churches, and Coptic Christians are having to flee here to America. Now, if we don't think that the people who want them dead aren't going to follow them or try to, I think that we're joking ourselves, we're kidding ourselves. So to summarize, there are 3 reasons why I think it's the utmost important that we extremely vet our immigrants and be very careful about our refugees, is because of the Quran, how it does have a tendency towards violence. The battles that are eternal between the 2 sides of Islam, and that will spill over into our country. And then you have what is happening now with groups like ISIS and the attacks in, say, Sweden as well, where you have this country that's opened their arms and hearts to a people who are now driving trucks over them. So if you will remember that and consider that, I hope you do the next time you speak to your representative or somebody like that when it comes to refugee status for the Islamic world. Thank you.